Kuna jamaa mwingine alikuja kwa duka kama nauza, akanisalimia, akaniuliza kama tunafanya delivery. Madawa mbili akanipatia eti ako na haraka, kuna jamaa mwingine anataka kukuja kuchukua hizo madawa. Kidogo kidogo akili yangu haifanyi, but nashtuka, ananiambia kama niko na 64,000 nimpatie.
On the morning of February 12, 2026, a man walked into a small boutique and asked a simple question: did the shop deliver goods? He claimed to be a doctor, said he was in a hurry, and asked for the shop owner's phone number. Before leaving, he handed her 2 packets of medicine, 200 shillings, and told her that someone would come later to collect them. Nothing about the encounter seemed unusual, and a few hours later, the other man arrived and asked for the medicine and the cash. She handed it over, but then something strange happened. The man asked whether she had 64,000 shillings, which the woman said she didn't. Yet moments later, she found herself opening her purse and gave him 19,800 shillings, then transferred another 39,000 shillings from her M-Pesa account to his phone. And before he left, she even attempted to borrow an additional 17,000 shillings from a friend to give it to this man. She wouldn't realize what had happened until 5 p.m. that evening, and by then, the money was gone without any form of violence.
Nikamtumia plus hizo makash 19,800. Akili yangu bado haifanyi, mimi nikampea na akaenda. Before aenda hadi nikaomba 17,000 kama naweza tumiwa.
What's mystifying is that she wasn't the only victim across Kenya, and shop attendants were reporting eerily similar encounters. No guns, no violence, no threats. So how did a mysterious gang rob businesses across the country and convince victims to hand over money willingly? And was there really a chemical behind it all? The devil's breath? Welcome. This is Dark Hour Docs. At first, the boutique incident seemed a bizarre one-off. But within days, similar reports began surfacing from across the country in Nairobi, Mombasa, Malindi, Nakuru, and Eldoret.
From Zambia, where they had allegedly gone into hiding. Police have linked the suspects to a series of M-Pesa robberies that have left several victims counting losses.
Victims described encounters with the same type of people. Strangers posing as customers who engage in brief conversations, routine transactions, and then money would disappear. In many cases, attendants later struggled to explain exactly what had happened. Some only realized they had been robbed after reviewing CCTV footage, while others didn't discover the missing cash until hours later. Often, victims appeared calm, cooperative, and completely unaware they were being robbed. As more stories emerged, a disturbing theory began spreading. Many believed the suspects were using a mysterious chemical known as devil's breath to manipulate their victims. When taken in high doses, it acts as a deliriant that blocks the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in the brain, making the victim compliant of the demands of the robber. The chemical has long been mentioned in the streets of Nairobi, with people terming it the world's scariest drug. Cases such as the boutique incident are many in the streets, with many victims at the CBD having interacted with the drug. And somewhere in Kenya, a group of suspects was repeating the same crime again and again on a larger scale using the drug. And as investigators pieced together the reports, a disturbing pattern began to emerge in how the suspects selected their victims and carried out their attacks. One of the incidents that would later attract the attention of investigators occurred at a mobile money shop in Meru County owned by a man known as Joseph. On that day, business was moving as usual, with customers coming, transactions being processed, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Then, 3 people walked into the shop, a man and 2 women. They did not look suspicious, neither did they wear masks or carry any weapons. This is one of the specific business they robbed there, as captured by a variety of CCTV cameras. In the footage, the man and two women are seen in this mobile money shop where they requested to exchange foreign currency for the local currency. And then, after a brief conversation between the shop attendant and the clients, the suspects left. It is only later that the shop attendants realized they had lost over 40,000 shillings. When CCTV footage was reviewed, the mystery only deepened, as the suspects did not appear threatening and the attendant did not appear frightened. Instead, the footage showed what looked like a routine conversation between customers and a cashier. Yet, by the end of that conversation, money had somehow changed hands, and it was almost as though the attendant had been persuaded to hand over cash willingly. Victims in the shop alleged that the thief sprayed them with a chemical that made them to easily give the suspects money without use of any force.
Wenye wanakuja kawaida, lakini hao walikuwa ni kama walikuwa Waarabu ama Wahindi. Wakakuja wakiwa watu watatu, kuishikashika kujua venye iliendelea. Ndio tulikuja kurealize kwa CCTV ni kama walikuwa wamespray hiyo pesa kitu, wakaingia wakachukua ile cash yote ilikuwa na wakatoka wakaenda.
And this was not their first robbery, as they have been using the same method to target other people across the country. In another video, the same two suspects were captured in a wholesale shop, standing very close to the shop's attendant. For a while, they are seen engaging the shopkeeper, and what followed was astonishing. He willingly started giving the strangers money from his shop, and the suspects later walked away. It is only later that the loss was discovered, and this footage quickly attracted attention from people who believed they had encountered the same individuals. However, before then, the same suspects would again be captured at a local bank in Mombasa, where they robbed the bank in a similar manner and walked away. This was in 30th November 2024, where the two were involved in a robbery of $2,900 from DTB Capital Center through a deliberate currency substitution fraud. During another robbery in the area, footage showed the same gang attempt similar fraudulent acts at DTB Nali and Lakoni branches on the 20th and 21st of January 2025.
Hiki jamani kimuizi na hawa mama mkiwaona tu tuitieni. Pigia polisi yule yako next hapo tu.
At this point, the group had attacked different businesses, different victims, and yet their stories sounded remarkably similar. For detectives, the pattern was now very clear. The suspects entered the targeted premises as ordinary customers and left with money before anyone realized what had happened. They left behind confused victims who struggled to explain exactly how they had been robbed. But the more the footage surfaced, the more their victims came forward and confessed to their experiences with the devil's breath. However, detectives from the banking fraud unit were already following a trail that would eventually lead far beyond Kenya's borders. Despite the suspects having moved from town to town without attracting significant attention for months, the DCI was now closing in quickly. The banking fraud unit pieced together all the reports and footage from across the country, linking incidents in Nairobi, Mombasa, Malindi, Nakuru, Eldoret, Meru, and other towns. With clear images of the perpetrators, detectives began closing in. At this point, the three suspects had already fled to Zambia, where they stayed a while and waited for the chase to cool down. For weeks, the trail had gone cold, with the suspects successfully vanishing beyond the borders. While in Zambia, they likely believed that the attention had eventually faded and the outrage by Kenyans had died down. And so, weeks later, on February 7th, 2026, they decided to return. But what they didn't know was that detectives had never stopped watching, and moments after their flight touched down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, they were nabbed by the cops. The two suspects arrested at JKIA were Ali Samir Abdallah and Ajib Haitham, who were intercepted following an active stop order. These were significant figures in the syndicate. The pair was taken into custody and detained at Capitol Hill Police Station as investigations continued alongside the search for additional accomplices.
Sasa jirani yangu ndiye akakuja 5 jioni akanisalimia akaniambia anaweza withdraw 1000. Nikamwambia hapana, sina, kuna pesa na ngoja naletewa. Kisha niambia hivyo venye naenda. Sasa hapo ndio akili yangu inaanza kufunction. Nasema guy, nimefanya nini? Na pesa iko wapi? Kuangalia bag, napata bag haina pesa.
For victims, the arrests brought relief, but they did not bring answers. Because despite the CCTV footage, the witness statements, and the arrests, one mystery remained. How were the shop attendants seemingly persuaded to hand over money without resistance? Was there really a chemical involved? And if so, is the devil's breath a drug easily available to criminals in the country? Also, were the perpetrators just simply masters of deception and psychological manipulation? And perhaps most importantly, how many more victims never realized they had been robbed at all? This has been Dark Hour Docs, and thank you for watching.